My gosh.
Paula, everyone's like, that's so lucky to have your parents so close. I'm like, yeah, but then also complicates things when on a map, we are so relatively close, but also relatively, I want to be present. And I can't be when I'm like, at 2:00, we were supposed to leave to go to so-and-so's. Like, gosh. Oh man, this is tricky.
Like, let's lean in. What's your relationship like with your mother-in-law? Because that's another point of tension at the holidays. I have 2 questions to ask of you. Number 1, how do you determine whose house you're going to go to for the holidays? And number 2, how do you navigate the relationship with your in-laws, particularly the one with your mother-in-law? Here's the reality. 95% of us will spend time with our families over the holiday. And I've had so many of you reach out to me over the last year asking, how do we navigate the relationship with our mother-in-law? And also I've had mothers-in-law reach out to me wanting to know how they navigate the relationship too. But I gotta be honest, you guys, I was at the YMCA probably last year at this time, and I overheard a group of women talking about this very thing, whose house they were gonna go to, how they were a little bit bitter about it all, how they felt like they were carrying the burden. And I was like, oh my gosh, this would make an incredible conversation. So I've been sitting on this conversation for a long time. It's been a long time coming, and I cannot wait to have it. So let's lean in a little bit here, okay? Let's talk about your mother-in-law. I was shocked to learn that over half of us women describe ourselves as having either a satisfied or highly satisfied relationship with our mothers-in-law. It's confusing, right? Because that's not really the narrative that we hear. Maybe the relationship gets a bad rap. So that's why I've invited mom, podcaster, and new friend Rachel Awtrey to the show. We're going to have a real and honest conversation about the complexities of determining whose house we're going to for the holidays. And it does get tricky because often we don't live in the same town as our family, so there's travel involved. We're going to tackle all of that. But we also dive into the deep end when talking about that relationship with our mothers-in-law. By the way, is it mother-in-law or mothers-in-law? I'm probably going to say it a multitude of ways, so just bear with me. But stick around to the very end of the conversation for my takeaways, including some very loving guidance for all of you mothers-in-law or mother-in-laws that are out there. I see you. And it's also advice for any of us that want to be a mother-in-law one day, right? And also a reminder that as we wrap up the year and wrap up the podcast for 2024, we're going to do what we always do. John and I do a couple of Ask Us Anything episodes. So I'm opening that up to you. You could reach out to me in my DMs. I already opened it up to any of you. Subscribe to my personal newsletter at paulaferrisofficial.com. It's free. It's fun. It's a great community. We keep it real. A couple of questions you already have for me. What to do when we don't see eye to eye on our social lives. Lots of questions about relationships. And you guys also have quite a few questions about my experience working in mainstream media, how powerful the media can be, and my overall thoughts on the election. So I will be answering all those questions in our Ask Us Anything episodes as we close out the year. But for now, I want you to enjoy this very juicy conversation with Rachel Awtrey. Hello, Rachel.
Hey, Paula. So good to be here.
We have been talking off camera, and already we have so much in common, even though this is the first time that we've physically talk to each other.
It's so wild how that happens.
So crazy. You live in Alabama, but you're from South Carolina. I live in South Carolina, right near Clemson. You went to Clemson.
I know. Yeah. I know. I mean, it's weird.
It's so weird. But you're going to be visiting me sometime. Maybe not over the holidays, but you're for sure going to be visiting me, right?
Oh, for sure. I'm like, I got to get Potbelly Deli back in my system. Have you ever been?
I have never been. Oh. I've never. Do I need to go to Potbelly?
Yeah, Deli? Best breakfast sandwiches right there in Clemson, South Carolina. That's my shout out.
Really? Yes. Mm-hmm. Okay, never been. See, now I know. Is this where all the college students go?
Well, I mean, I don't know about now, but that's where I went when I was a college student. There's probably so many other cooler things to do now, but then go to the deli. But like that was what we did. Hang out. Yeah.
I need you to talk to my daughter on the down low because she's looking at Clemson amongst a couple of other schools. I'd love it if she went to Clemson.
Yeah.
But it's, I think, too close. It's 20, 25 minutes from our house. But I'm trying now, Rachel. I don't know if it's working, and it's especially not going to work if she listens to this because I like to use reverse psychology. And I'm like, you shouldn't go to Clemson. It's too close to us. I don't want you anywhere near us.
Yeah.
So I'm like trying to like
your idea. Yeah.
Yeah. But now that she knows that Like if she listens to this, she's gonna be like, Mom, what are you doing? Come on. So
I love it.
But I love Clemson. I love living in South Carolina. It's definitely different from all the other areas we've lived. You know, I grew up in Michigan. My husband grew up in Indiana. We met in school in Ohio.
Definitely different.
Yeah. And then, you know, our families are still back in the Midwest. We've lived in Chicago and New York and now South Carolina. And we always talk about it this time of year. Where do we go for the holidays? Actually, Rachel, what really gave me the idea to have this conversation about where do we go for the holidays?
Yeah.
I heard a group of women at the YMCA. I'm not joking. I am so nosy. I love to listen in on conversations. And there were about 4 women, and they were all griping about, why do I have to go to his house for the holidays? And talking about their mothers-in-law. So I'm like, ooh, this would be a really good topic. So that's why we're talking about it.
It's spicy, Paula. It's spicy. I'm honored you asked me, and I even texted my mother-in-law. I was like, so I love you so much. Whatever is said, it's going to stay. And
I didn't even text my mother-in-law about it. She just knows. Like, I think she and I are the same human being. We're both a little rough around the edges, but I love her so much. Okay, so you live in Alabama now, which your husband's in the military, but your parents and your in-laws are back in South Carolina. So how do you navigate all of this?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we moved to Alabama about 8 years ago, and the idea was we're just going to go on our own newlywed adventure, and we just never came back home. So I think for the first few years, all of our families were just holding out for the time when the Awtreys would figure it out. That's just easier. And they even threw around the whole, well, when they have kids, they'll come back home, right? And we had kids on the road, not like literally in a car, but like while we were traveling for pilot training, because my husband, he's a pilot in the military. And
can I just say, by the way, that's hot that your husband's a pilot.
It is so sexy. Am I allowed to say that on your show?
Totally. Like, that's hot.
Him in a flight suit. I'm like, I'm done. I'm over it. I love it. But I will say, so Spark Notes, we got married pretty young, right out of college. We moved to Alabama as our adventure. Like I said, our newlywed adventure. We were there for about 4 years. And then my husband had a quarter life crisis, is what I call it. And he kind of woke up and had some sort of fever dream and was like, I want to be a pilot. Like overnight, changed his mind, switched pivot careers. And he had already been in the military and just that was the route he decided to take. So he went for it. And now it's what he does. Wild. So with all that in mind, life had already changed a ton. Then we added some babies while we were away, and we didn't even have the opportunity to be close to family. If we wanted to, they'd have to come to us. We just learned it the hard way and got thrown into the deep end and actually floated. Like we did fine. So when we got back to Birmingham, Alabama, and of course we were like, hey, are we going to be here for forever? Like, what is the plan? I don't know about forever, but we really love it now. And we've learned how to build village and community where we are. And by no means, don't hear me say we don't need our family, because we love them and we crave them. And it's so sweet when they come to visit. But we have learned how to do life with them still geographically far away.
So how long have you been away from your families in South Carolina?
Yeah, 8 years, our whole marriage.
Okay. Now, I've been away from home since 1993, and you can do the math. That's when I graduated high school. So I went to college, and then I stayed in Ohio for a long, long time. Go Blue, by the way. People, you lived in Ohio, but you're a Michigan fan. I know it's complicated. I was a missionary trying to spread the good word of the Wolverines while I lived in Ohio. I've been away from home since 1993. And I don't know about you, Rachel, but like a part of me hopes that my kids don't move away. I have realized, yes, you can find community wherever you are. Yeah. But the older I am, I'm like, I really wish I would have been closer to family.
Sure.
We never lived in the same town as our families. Chicago was the closest. Yeah, it was about 2 hours to his family and about 4 hours to mine, but that was the closest we ever were to our families after graduation. I want my kids to stay close. I don't know.
I do too.
That's my own personal experience, though.
If my boys did what I did to my in-laws and my mom, I mean, game over. Yeah, I would be like looking up Zillow houses to come to you. I don't know. I don't know. I think the same.
I joke with my daughter all the time, like, I'm going to live next door. But seriously, like, I want to be part of their lives. I want to help raise the grandkids, all of that. And I think the pendulum swung a little too far for Americans. I have family back in Lebanon, and they all do life together. They live in the same apartment buildings. Like, they expect the next family member to move in, like, on the level above. And they're offended if you don't ask for help. So, yeah, Caroline and JJ and Landon, I don't know if I'll survive if you guys leave me. So that's a
Same
whole
to
nother
you, Max Muller.
conversation.
I know.
A whole other conversation. So how do you navigate the holidays? How do you know whose house you're going to go to? And are you the one that's always traveling? I think for us, we're like, we really want to start our own tradition here in South Carolina, or we wanted to do it in New York. And we're like, they can come visit us, or maybe we celebrate it another time of the year. Does it have to be around the holidays? How do you guys do it?
Paula, we've literally done it every which way. I mean, I'm thinking in my mind, if I could write out a list of all of our options, we could either see no one, stay home, and we've had that one year when I was uber pregnant with our now 2-year-old. He was a Christmas baby. So I was like, I'm not traveling, getting the swollen ankles. Like, I'll be home. No. And so we did Thanksgiving here, just us 3. And it was so precious. We loved it. And then we have also done it where we go home. And because our families live 15 minutes away from, my mom's house and my mother-in-law's house, like, we just do both. And it's a lot of food. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of mileage on our cars, but we do both. And then we've also done it to where we can set some boundaries like, hey, we want to be present where we are. So we're going to do Thanksgiving. It's equally hard and a blessing that we can be so close and we are available and easily accessible, but we're going to choose to not be in order to be present with where we choose to be this year. It's a little edgy, but we've done that too. And we loved it. It was beautiful. So and now we have kids, and now we're trying to figure out, we really crave our home being the home that our kids remember traditions in and inviting grandparents here. But I mean, all my in-laws and nieces and nephews, I'm the oldest of my family. So my kids are the only grandkids on my mom's side. So it's just tricky when it comes to, okay, so do they leave all the other grandkids to come and see these grandkids? Just like complex, so complex. But we've tried it every which way. And honestly, they all have pros and they all have cons.
We've done a little bit of everything. We've gone back to Michigan. We've gone back to Indiana. And my kids love to go back to the cold weather. I think they miss the snow now that we're in the South.
It's quintessential for Christmas. Like, you have to go find snow.
You have to find snow.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we want to create our own traditions in our house. So this year, we're staying home. We are staying here in South Carolina. We invited my whole family to come down from Michigan. So they're coming. My mom is flying in from Michigan along with my sister and husband and their kids. And my brother's flying in from Denver.
Wait, that's so epic.
It's going to be so fun. But last year, we went back to the Midwest, but we're really craving I want the kids to wake up on Christmas morning and be here in our home. And can I just say what a pain in the butt it is? I know that Santa buys all the presents, but it's weird how we end up taking Santa's presents in our car back to our family's home. I don't know how that works, but it's tough. We need to work out some sort of transport deal and delivery deal with Santa. But
call those elves.
I know, seriously. One thing that's really worked for us, and I don't know, it sounds like you guys have done this too. And I did some research, Rachel, just in case you're inquiring.
Tell me the numbers.
This is one of the greatest sources of stress. Clearly, I overheard it at the Y with those women. So clearly it's one of the biggest sources of stress, but it is a huge source of stress. Whose home do you go to? And because our families don't live in the same town, our families are in 2 different states. Yours are in the same town, 15 minutes apart, which is awesome and super convenient. But what we've tried to do is Thanksgiving at one, Christmas at another. And of course, if you're Jewish or you celebrate other holidays, you got to figure that out too. That's worked well. But also we're you know what? We're going to celebrate Christmas with our family, just the 5 of us. And then we'll celebrate Christmas in Indiana the week after, or we'll celebrate Christmas in Michigan the week after. And everybody comes in. And that way, because everybody in my family, well, not everybody, my brother's not married, but everybody else, is navigating their own in-law situation. So that's worked out great too, is you have Christmas, however you want to have Christmas. And then the week after, or we could even do it the week before, we can celebrate it together. We can all come together.
I love that.
So that also works.
That's good. That'll work.
You think? No, I'm excited about it, but you just have to do what's right for you. But here's some of the tips, Rachel. Tell me if you're on board with these. Don't commit to anything right away, Rachel. Okay.
Heard.
So if you can't commit to it unless you've talked it over with your husband, the hot pilot. I'm not even going to refer to him as his first name. He's just the hot pilot.
I'll take it. I'll take it.
Yes. The other bit of advice was talk to both sides of the family. Sometimes all the stress from this decision is created in your head. It's possible that both sides of the family are indifferent. Maybe they have plans that you're not involved in. Communicate what's important and pick your battles. Celebrate the holiday another time. That's what we do. And it's honestly worked out great. And then give your relationship the tie-breaking vote. So you can talk to both sides of the family. You each individually have a vote, but then your relationship gets a vote too. And then lastly, host the holidays yourself or go your own way.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you doing this year?
Yeah, that's a good question. Ooh, to be determined, honestly. I have a few I would add. Can I add some?
Yes, please add as many as you want.
All right.
I will call up the editor to this article and say, you need to add Rachel's input.
That's right. And also, yes, you missed something. Okay. Yes. Number one, I would say is if there has to be a hard decision made, have the actual like blood relative go to bat for you. So like if we had to choose to go see my parents, I have Thomas have that conversation with his parents.
And Thomas is the hot pilot.
Yes.
Okay.
I would have my husband.
I didn't know his name until now. He was just the hot pilot.
Now you know. So Thomas.
So wait, you would have him talk to his?
Yeah. I mean, like we could go together for sure, but like I'm not going to get caught in a conversation with just my mother-in-law about that.
Right.
Honestly, just to like protect our relationship. And they have a different relational equity than I have with her. Like Thomas and Marie and Thomas and Randy, like they have so much context and history. And as do I. I've been afforded that just with our story naturally. Sure. But I think like if it were to get tense or odd, like have the person that is the family representative have that conversation with their own family.
I like that. Okay. So that I'm not stuck having that conversation with Jan.
And you're not the bad guy because no one's the bad guy. It's just, it's an unfortunate reality that is just how holidays play out and someone's feelings are going to get hurt.
I love that.
And then I would say number two is I'd say take into account like offense is a choice. Okay. So like if they say something and they're hurt, like easier said than done, right? But let it roll off. Be like, this is just a really crummy, I hate that we have to even make this decision. Next year, it'll probably turn out differently situation. So like, I'm not going to let someone's sadness or whatever, like words affect our relationship because it sometimes can get tense. Yeah. And the third I would say is take into account all the other people that are going to be affected by your decision, like children. I think too, I have selfish, I'm like, oh, I want to be at so-and-so's house or so-and-so's house for whatever reason. But then I have to think like, okay, actually, or even as a parent of young kids being like, what's going to be easiest for me as a mom? But in reality, if I take them out of the equation, like, oh no, they actually deserve to be a part of the experience and conversation and like asking them like, hey bud, like, do you want to wake up at home and open up presents at our house? And then maybe we can figure out a drive Christmas afternoon or whatever and get savvy. You can get creative. Like
that's good.
It doesn't have to be the way it's always been done. So permission to change it up too.
I like that advice. I especially like having the blood relative have the conversation so that you don't have to be the bad guy. And also involving your kids in the process. My kids, they just want to see their cousins. They're real tight with their cousins. And so for them, it's family time. We found that it doesn't so much matter that it has to be on the holiday, that it can be the next week or it can be the week before, or you can kind of create your own. I really, really like that. You've put some real thought into this, Rachel. I'm so impressed.
I just had to.
Oh my gosh.
Everyone's like, that's so lucky to have your parents so close. I'm like, yeah, but then also complicates things when on a map, we are so relatively close, but also relatively, I want to be present. And I can't be when I'm like, oh, at 2:00, we were supposed to leave to go to so-and-so's. Like I just, gosh, oh man, this is tricky.
And I don't want something like what you said about not living in offense is really good too, because look, my parents, well, my mom's in her 80s, my in-laws are in their 80s, and I'm like, they're 80, like, look, I don't want tension from the daughter-in-law, mother-in-law relationship to spill over to tension that my husband feels. Like, I don't want to put him in that situation. And I'm like, they're 80 years old too. Like, I'm going to cut them some slack, right? Yes. The other thing I would add, number 4 to that list, don't be afraid to switch it up every year. Like, create your own tradition every year. And I think I get so caught up and we have to have a family tradition. We have to stick with it every single year. But honestly, we've never done the same thing each year. We've just done what's right for us in that season.
Yeah. I just don't want the holiday to be marked from a really awkward, intense, and misunderstanding or conversation. I'd rather the holiday be marked by the memories we made.
Yeah.
And so if at any point I start feeling tension, it's not like I'm going to keep the peace and compromise, but I think that there is a level of, hey, is this turning sour? Like, is Christmas 2024 going to be one of those really awkward ones that goes down in history as the family feud? Or like, what can I do to protect all of our reputations and character and memory? Because I just don't want this to be something I look back on and cringe, like, oh, I can't believe that conversation happened. Because I've had those too, you know?
Okay, worst family Christmas. My family, everybody on my side of the family. So like there's 7 grandkids, there's 4 kids, and the spouses, my brother isn't married, but they all came to New York, and back-to-back years, we all got sick. It's like you get us. And so that's what I would like, being together in a cold weather environment where you're all cooped up. I got the flu, like not just one year. And then the year before, everybody just got a stomach bug. And let me just tell you, that's no fun.
No.
So no fun whatsoever. When you're not proximate to your family, everybody's staying. Like we don't put our family up in a hotel. Are you guys like that? Like we all stay together. It's just like one big hot mess. You got sleeping bags everywhere. You cram everybody in the house. What do you guys like when you get together?
We are all the above. We are at my in-laws' house. They've been so generous, and they actually built out a nursery out of one of their older bedrooms. And so we have a place to put a baby. So grateful. And then we bring like a fun little like blow up toddler bed for our 3-year-old. He just sleeps in our room with us. And then a lot of times we'll have my sister-in-law and her kids, because they are close, but not.
Yes.
Like, they just want to save a drive. So they'll stay too. And they're staying in that other bedroom, and the kids are sleeping on the air mattress downstairs. Same. And then my mom is so sweet, so cute. She has a house. My dad passed away when I was in high school. So it's just like created a little bit different of a dynamic of going and loving on her, because who knows what that season's going to look like. And she doesn't live in the house that I grew up in. So I'm not staying at my high school bedroom or anything like that. She typically has like a guest room or somewhere for us to stay, which is so fun. And we throw a baby in a bathroom and a pack and play. And it's just you're camping basically. And it's great. I love it.
So do you have a good relationship with your, and here we go, right? Okay.
Yeah, here we go. Let's dive in. Paula, nothing's off the table. My podcast is literally called Real Talk, because we just like go there. So just go there.
Let's lean in. What's your relationship like with your mother-in-law? Because that's another point of tension at the holidays, the in-laws. And why do guys, we never have this conversation about guys. Is this just like have we created a nasty narrative around daughters-in-law and their mothers-in-law? Like for sure. Guys don't have to deal with this. We never hear about their relationship with their in-laws, because they're like, well, whatever.
I'll make it work. Yeah. I have to say, like, I love my mother-in-law. She's incredible. Her name is Marie.
Hi, Marie.
Hey, Marie. She's May May to my boys. And
May May?
May May.
Okay, can I just say May May was leche, like milk. We would say if the kids wanted more May May, they wanted more milk. So when you say May May, I'm like, oh, my kids wanted more milk when they were little. No. Okay.
She's so sweet. She's so cute. And my father-in-law is incredible too. I've had just like this interesting dynamic with them for a long time. We went to the same church growing up. My husband and I, we claim high school sweethearts, although if you listen to our story, you'd be like, that's not what they are. We dated in high school. We broke up for a long time. We dated other people, and we got back together later in life.
Okay.
But we claim it because like we knew each other.
Yes.
And with that, we just shared community. Our parents knew each other. My mom and Marie's to this day get like Mexican food every other Tuesday. I'm pretty sure like they're just friends.
Isn't it so nice? My parents were good friends with John's parents. I say were because my dad passed away. My mom's still around, but she's in an assisted living. So, but my parents and John's parents, my husband, got along great. And I know that's rare, but it's so nice. It's such a gift.
And I think in any season, like we could have gone sour. Like, I mean, I've said harsh things. She said harsh things. We've reconciled. Like, we're humans. I'm not expecting to get along with this woman forever. And if I do, I'm calling it fake. Like, I'm calling it for what it is. I'm like, we haven't really ever had a good conversation if you've never felt the phrase of somebody else, you know? But I think she's had an interesting dynamic because she watched my family go through a lot of our hard things whenever I was in high school. And they were very, very close to it all.
That's when your father passed away.
Yes. So my dad passed away unexpectedly when I was 17 and healthy guy. And he was involved in a rock climbing accident and just gone bad. And so overnight things changed for me, and my in-laws showed up because they're part of church community. They're my friends. I'm their son's girlfriend. At the time, actually, I'd just broken up with Thomas right before this had happened. So like there's a little bit of limbo, like how close do we get to this, ex-girlfriend of ours? But we were going through something and they showed up. And fast forward to even our engagement wedding season, my mother-in-law was very involved because she was like, hey, you're one parent down, right? And like, I want to make sure the gaps are filled. This is a once in a lifetime season. Like, how close do you want me to get? So he had a lot of those conversations too. Very wise. She's so mature. She was like, I can back up. I can get close. What do you need? And there have been seasons where I'm like, hey, please back up. Back up, Marie. And then there's other seasons where I'm like, help me, Marie. And so we've ebbed and we've flowed with each season, and we just had to figure it out. And when you add babies and grandchildren and sons and beach vacations, things get tricky and evolve just like it does when you add humans together. But overall, overarching theme is Marie is a saint. She makes every single person in our house's grateful list when we're saying prayers at night.
You have to put the work into it as well. And I think we have to realize, like, how do we want to be treated? That's what I keep thinking. Like, I want to treat my mother-in-law with that foresight of how I want to be treated by my daughter-in-law and my, son-in-law. And so I read something online. It was an IG post from Never Empty Nest. I love following this Instagram account. And it says, when your kids get married, decide in advance that you're going to be the most drama-free, loving, and supportive mother/father-in-law on the planet. Yeah. You will have tremendous power to either make your kids' marriages feel blessed or feel stressed.
That's so good.
That's so good. And so I'm trying to go into it thinking I don't want to be a burden, and I also know that what I put out there, I'm a big believer in what you put out, you're going to get back. I wanted to give my mother-in-law as much grace, and I love Janet. We have had our ups and downs. We're very similar. I think my husband kind of married his mom. We're very similar. We're both suck it up, buttercup. You're going to be fine. Yeah. We can both be a little rough around the edges. But I also realize, I don't want to put my husband in a bad situation where he has to choose between his mother and his wife. I mean, that would kill me if my kids were ever in that position by their spouse or their partner. And so I want to call my in-laws, not just my son-in-law. I want to call my son. I want to call my daughter. And so I want to put that energy out there because I really think you reap what you sow.
You do. And I have 2 little boys right now, 3 and 2. And it's just wild because I think about that all the time, either thinking oh man, that's the mother-in-law I do or don't want to be. And then at the same time, I'm also thinking through okay, putting myself in Marie's shoes, would I want my daughter-in-law approaching me about it? Is this worth it? You know? I don't know if I had that perspective before I had boys of my own. Yes. I will be that mother-in-law one day, prayerfully. It's just weird. This is just, the circus is going to go around. It's going to be my turn one day.
I worry more about, and you don't have a daughter yet. Yeah. Who knows? Maybe one day, because
who knows? There's more we pray, but
super hot pilot. And I, would imagine that
he needs a daughter. He's a good, I can see him as a girl dad.
Have fun trying. But I will say I'm more concerned about, I wouldn't even say concerned, but I'm thinking more about the relationship with my future daughters-in-law than my son-in-law. Because I feel like my daughter's probably going to be around, Caroline, and I'm not super concerned about that relationship with him. Sure. It's more the daughters. But I think that's because the mother-in-law, daughter-in-law relationship, there's so many tropes about it. It gets a bad rap. Don't you think it gets bad? And I read this. A survey of American women conducted in 2021 found that 51% of daughters-in-law are satisfied or very satisfied with the relationship with their mother-in-law.
Yeah. Why are we talking about it like it's an 80-20 thing?
Exactly. So
I know
the in-law relationship gets a bit of a bad rap. And granted, sometimes it is fraught. Sometimes your mother-in-law is crazy. But other times maybe it's you that's a little crazy.
I mean, we have the J-Lo movie. It's Monster-in-law or Mother-in-Law. What is it? With, you know what I'm talking about? It's a Hollywood thing.
I am so bad with culture.
Oh, really?
Like,
Okay.
cultural references.
I will send you the link to watch it, or like where you can stream it. But like, there's like Hollywood's done a really great job, I think, of controlling that narrative. I think there's also like, that's just what's juicy. Like that's what's fun to listen to. And I also think when you get girls or women in any setting, and it's like one of them starts complaining, no one wants to be the bigger person to say, "Yeah, I don't want to talk about this anymore," or like, "My mother-in-law is amazing." Like you kind of want to like meet them with meet them with the stank. I don't know, like with all the stinking thinking, you're like, I'm not going to be the girl that just is like fake, although you're being the most authentic by being like, I can't join you in this, ladies. Like, it's just as awkward. And so I think like that gives people the idea that there's more of us that are bothered than not. So like, yeah, what does it look like to actually like honor your mother-in-law? Oh gosh, I hope my daughter-in-law speaks highly of me too in settings like that, and doesn't like cower like I sometimes do to group settings that are talking negatively about anybody, not just mother-in-law, like husbands. Oh my gosh, some of my friends can just say the worst, and I'm like, I just can't participate.
Yes.
So like, what if we stopped participating? I wonder how things would change.
I think so too, and I do think it gets a bad rap. But I want my daughters-in-law to like rise up and call me blessed. First of all, I want them to thank me for teaching my boys how to cook and how to clean and how to like do their part and how to talk about women and treat women like that. For me, like I don't want my boys thinking they're marrying somebody that can take care of them. I want them to be a true partner. So that'll be like the hugest win for me, and equality and all of that. Yeah. But like, I want them to be good partners. Okay. So this was interesting too. While the mother-in-law to daughter-in-law link is surely the most complex, all in-law relationships come under tension as couples move through life together. And I do think that that's really key. I've had issues with my mother-in-law. She's had issues with me. I remember, and Jen, I love you. But we've had this conversation probably.
I do bless you, Jen.
I do love you. The one time I like got so annoyed, she told me that I needed to cook more for her son. And I was like, oh no, she didn't. And she and I have had and laughed about it since. You know, I have to also realize, okay, and give her a little bit of grace. She grew up in a totally different era. And yes, she's a working woman. But that was an era where it was the 50s and 60s. The guy came home and there was food on the table. We have to also give them some grace and realize in their mind, it's what they grew up with. Okay. It's their perspective. So it's a little bit different. So I've had to realize I got to give her a lot of grace too. It was a different time then. It's a different time now. Yeah. And also it
will be a different time when it's our turn. Yeah.
1,000%. And every relation, just because you have disagreements, like every relationship has a disagreement, doesn't mean that you have to be disagreeable, and doesn't mean that the relationship has to be fraught. You have to work through it.
Yes.
But yes, Rachel, you need to cook more for your hot husband.
Oh, I dare you. I dare you. I'm like sweating thinking about that.
I'm so bad at the kitchen. And I have to say, my mother-in-law is like epic in the kitchen. And I'm so bad it's become a joke. Like so bad. And she'll often tell me, she'll give me the recipe. And I'm like, Janet, why are you looking at me? Give it to John. Have him write it down. You know, I'm not the only one that could cook in the house, but we're going to be great mothers-in-law, don't you think?
I was about to say, I kind of want to be close to you when you're doing this because you're a few steps ahead, and I just want to like be eyes on the wall, like a fly on the wall. It also makes me think like if I was to avoid what was always hard, which is sometimes visiting my mom, like, and not because she's hard, but because my dad's missing and that's hard. And then if sometimes I just decided to avoid visiting my in-laws because I'd prefer to spend time with my own blood, like I want my kids to grow up seeing mom and dad visiting their mom and dad, so that the expectation is that when they grow up, they still visit mom and dad. And if we are avoiding it, what standard are we setting for our kids? Like,
that's right.
I would hope that they'd go out of the way to visit me if we live far away or they moved away. And I would hope that they would move heaven and earth to be with me, and they would know I would do the same. And that only happens when we set little like standards for them as they grow up and learn what the quote unquote normal world is for them. And I hope normal is going out of your way to visit people you love, no matter how logistically or emotionally hard it could be, you know?
I just think like, regardless of whether you're listening to this or watching, regardless of your relationship and what it's like with the in-laws, like just think about this, like how much would it kill you if you couldn't see your kids anymore?
Oh,
you know, if you were cut off from that relationship, I want to do everything in my power to make sure that I read somewhere online, they said women marry their spouse, not the extended family. I actually a little disagree with that.
Do you disagree? I was going to say, like, that's interesting. And then my head started spinning a little bit.
I want to be the family that is so welcoming. Like, I think when you marry somebody, you are marrying their family. And that's like my daughter's dating. Your boys are nowhere near that because they're 3 and 2. So you've got some.
I can't imagine. My brain will not let me get there.
But I tell my daughter all the time how important it is. Like, I love my in-laws and I love the whole family. And that has made the relationship so much more fruitful. You are marrying their family because their family can make or break your relationship. Yes. And so be cognizant of how important that is. And look, it can't always work out, but I'll just say this, that relationship matters. And it's either going to put undue stress on your relationship or it's going to
bless.
It's going to thank you. I'm so, you know what? I'm never going to record a podcast in the afternoon again because I am brain dead. I have been brain dead since I started this podcast with you.
No way. I think you're doing incredible.
Like a 3 out of a 10.
No, I think this is amazing. I think it's amazing.
Yes, like you said, it's either going to strain it or it's going to bless it and make it better and more fruitful than it could be. So yes, you are marrying the family. And that's the advice I'm going to give to my kids. And if you guys disagree with me, that's okay. We can disagree about it. So
no, you're definitely marrying your family and you're setting the standard and also keeping in mind like how you talk about them is how your kids are going to see them. And I would want to be upheld with the most respect and all of the above. Yes.
What you just said, how we talk about them is key. And our kids are listening to that.
Yes, they are. Yes,
that's really good. You're so wise, Rachel.
Oh, wait, I'm like, say it again. I'm like, I needed that today. I don't feel wise today.
Say it again. What are you doing? What are you doing for the holidays this year?
So my husband is deployed right now. He's overseas.
Oh, thank you for his service.
Yes, the hot pilot is overseas. And he will be home for the holidays. So, I mean, that is the plan. Of course, we're holding it loosely, but like, I'm so excited. I really hope, and I think he'll be home for the holidays. So nice.
Wait, did the boys know that he's coming home?
Yes, So this is like a whole other podcast episode, but like, how do you navigate deployment with 2 little boys?
Military.
Big feelings. So they're obsessed with Christmas because they're like, they wake up every day. Is it Christmas yet? Is it Christmas yet? Because they know dad's coming home before Christmas. So we put up their little Christmas trees in their rooms last night and they're like, oh, I'm so excited. And I was like, what are you excited about? They're like, dad's coming home soon. And I was like, well, I still got a month, but yes.
What are your boundaries with that? Knowing your family's out of town, but his parents are probably going to want to come see him because he's been deployed.
Of course. So we're just kind of like trying to figure out, of course, people are going to want to see him. If one of my boys decided to be in the military and was deployed and he got home, I'd want to like put my hands on his face and be like, you're safe, you're home. So like I'm expecting my mother-in-law to want to do the same. And then honestly, like we're probably just going to hunker down. And I think everyone expects that of us this year. We're probably just going to be here and do home together. And then Thanksgiving is the one that's up in the air because we're like, do I travel to South Carolina with 2 boys by myself or what's going to go on?
You can come to our house.
That's right. Yeah, that's still to be determined. But
day by day though.
Day by day and honest conversation and allowing things to change. And we're talking about a 3-year-old and a 2-year-old. So we could be in the car 15 minutes down the road and decide to turn around if we needed to, to just choosing brave, whether that's to actually go or to have a conversation. We're going to be brave.
I think I really enjoyed having this conversation. And I want everyone to remember this is like our spouses were young at some point and they were our in-laws' whole world, And so I want to continue to see my mother-in-law, my father-in-law as that young parent and give them grace because their baby's all grown up. Their baby's an adult now. Our babies are going to be grown up one day too.
Yes.
But they're always going to be our babies. And so give them lots of grace because to them, they're always, you'll always be my baby. I totally took that out of context. So,
all right, Mariah Carey.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe your husband's deployed and he's coming home for the holidays.
I know, it is so dreamy. It actually is so dreamy. Like I'm trying not to over romanticize it in my brain, but it's about to be so fun and romantic.
It's going to be amazing. Okay, but you do need to come visit sometime because your family's 100%. In South Carolina. You went to Clemson. I mean, this is like it has to happen. It's supposed to be.
I know. Oh, yeah. This friendship is like written in the stars. I can't wait.
Totally serendipitous. When we started talking, I'm like, I cannot believe how many things we already have in common. It's meant to be.
Meant to be. Well, this has been a blessing. You are a treat and a gem, and I've learned so much from you and can't wait to see how you do it. So don't mess it up.
And I already love May, by the way, your mother-in-law.
May, we love you.
Janet, I do love you so much. I hope if you have figured out how to listen to podcasts and you're listening to this, I love you. Yes, we have had our moments. I love you. And you did such a great job with your con.
Amen.
Okay, Rachel.
Much love.
Much love.
Thank you so much for having me.
I love how real and relatable Rachel is. She has a podcast called Real Talk with Rachel Awtrey. If you haven't checked it out, I encourage you to do so. And before I jump into my takeaways and my kind advice for all the mothers-in-law out there, would you guys do me a huge favor and write a review for this podcast? There's a bunch of new ones coming in, but what this does, it doesn't just feed my ego. There is a real and legitimate reason why reviews matter, because of the algorithms and these platforms that are hosting the podcast. If they see more engagement, then they're more likely to promote the show. The more the show is promoted, then we can continue to have these conversations. So yeah, it's nice to see. It feeds my ego, but there is a real legitimate reason behind writing a review. So if you could do that, I would love it. Okay, end of that PSA. It is time for my takeaways. When it comes to determining whose house you're going to go to, don't be afraid to change it up and mix it up. Now, we've lived in a lot of different areas. I grew up in Michigan and then lived in Ohio for a while, lived in Chicago, lived in New York, and every year was a little bit different. Don't be afraid, even if you're nostalgic like I am and you want to stick to a tradition, don't be afraid to mix it up and change it up. The most important thing is that you're with your family, even if it's after the holidays. My family is visiting us in South Carolina, my whole family, over Christmas, but usually what we're doing is we're getting together the week after Christmas. So don't be afraid to celebrate at another time. If it's the week after, maybe you want to do something in July. A couple of things that Rachel said that I really loved. She said offense is a choice. She said take into account everyone that's affected by the decision, i.e. your kids, your partner. And she said if a hard decision has to be made, have a blood relative go to bat. Really good advice. And also consider you don't want to commit to anything right away. You want to make sure that you're having a conversation with your partner. And once you do have that conversation, then open the lines of communication. Talk to both sides of the family. Often there's a lot of tension and it's just overblown because we haven't opened the lines of communication. Alrighty. So now it is time to gently talk about the things that we don't want our mothers-in-law to do. And this is a little bit of advice maybe for any of us that want to have in-laws one day, that want to be a mother-in-law. And look, mothers-in-law, look, we get it. This is still your baby, even though they're all grown up. I know I'm going to feel the same exact way, and I get very territorial about my kids. So this is just as much advice for any of us that want to have a good relationship with our in-laws down the road as it is for you. So I was reading that, yes, most of us have a satisfying or highly satisfying relationship with our mothers-in-law, but a lot of us don't. So here's a couple of reasons why. And I'm going to read from an article that I wrote. And one woman said, my mother-in-law just asked for Christmas gift ideas for the kids. She said, ask your son. Another woman wrote, I've told my husband it's not expected of him to be in contact with my mom constantly, but it's expected of me to always be in contact with yours. And another woman noted, we are treated as a resource, not as people. And I think that kind of gets to the crux of it. Like, the relationship is kind of on us. We have to sustain it. And it does bother me, that I get asked all the questions. I'm like, you can ask your son. So those are a couple of things. Mothers-in-law, if you're listening, you're awesome. You did a great job with your kids. But those are just some things to consider. Our time is valuable as well. Get your own blood children involved in the conversation as well. All right, enough about that. Next week, we're going to be talking about our favorite holiday movies and how to find content that the whole family will love. John is going to join me for that conversation, and we are talking to Dallas Jenkins, the creator of The Chosen and also the director of the wildly popular holiday movie, The Best Christmas Pageant Ever, which if you have not seen it yet, oh my gosh, take your family, take your friends. It is literally a must-see film, especially this time of year. And a reminder to all of you as we close out the season, we're doing our Ask Us Anything. Slide into my DMs, tell me what you want to talk about, or a reminder to sign up for my personal newsletter. You can always reach out to me that way. But hey, this was a tough conversation to have. You guys were troopers. I loved it. I'm here for all the spicy conversations that we have to lean into a little bit, but let's keep talking about it. Happy holidays, and I'll see you right here next week. I know you guys thought you were done with me, but not quite yet. I have one more thing to tell you about. If you're watching on YouTube or you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, don't forget to subscribe to the show. I don't want you to miss a single beat or a single conversation. And remember, my DMs are always open. Tell me what you want to talk about.